Alright, figured I'd make a video answering all the questions that I get regarding our mainline dyno literally every single day. Both from people wanting to use it, get their car tuned on it, rent it, whatever, and then other shop owners and tuners that are looking to potentially purchase one. So let's answer the phone. Alright, let's start here. How much does it cost? The three main units are the 2,000 horsepower, 3,000 horsepower, and 6,000 horsepower. Mine is a 3,000 horsepower. Obviously they all cost different amounts. They all have a million different options. There's even different software packages. The easiest thing I can say on that one is I would contact Craig or Todd at Mainline and have them do an estimate for you and what you need, as I think the price is pretty much going to be different for everybody, as everyone's going to have different needs. How portable is it? It rolls, but it's kind of the same concept as trying to roll a floor jack and you hit a zip tie and then it doesn't want to move anymore. And then when you think about what you're asking it to do, you don't want it to really roll around too great, too wonderful. So yes, you can move it around the shop, which is amazingly convenient, but it's not, you're not going to roll it through the parking lot. You're not going to take it to Walmart parking lot and tune cars, and it's going to use either 240 volt, 220 volt, whatever you want to call that, or three-phase power. So it's not like you can just plug it into a normal wall outlet and get started. Let's see, how long does it take to set up a car? It kind of depends on how motivated you are. If you have two people, you can probably knock it out in 5, maybe 10 minutes, less than that. If you're by yourself, I generally figure 20 minutes or so, but more often than not, someone's here and you're kind of running your mouth and all of that. I do find in a lot of situations it's actually easier to set a car up than like a roller dyno with all the different straps, as the straps almost always seem to get in the way of exhaust components or dump tubes or something like that. Or in like some of the newer cars, like the R35 GTRs, you have to take off some under panels and stuff to get straps on them, and there's what feels like 250 bolts holding that stuff on, so it's kind of a pain. Why is there a jack under the car in some of the videos? I guess it's just a little bit of an extra safety margin. If something was to happen, you got something there to potentially help the car from dropping to the ground. I've never had any questionable scenarios or incidents or anything like that. Sometimes I leave it there, sometimes I don't. Usually as the power goes up, I'll leave it there, but there's no load on it. It's just jacked up enough to where it's barely touching the rear end or whatever, or I guess on a front wheel drive car, core support or traction bar, whatever you have. So it's not really doing a whole lot. Let's see here. Honda suck. That's not really a question. I can't help you with that one. How accurate is it? I don't know. Accurate compared to what? I've personally owned a Dynojet, a Mustang dyno, and 2 Dynapack dynos. The Dynojet without a doubt read the highest. The Mustang dyno without a doubt read the lowest. And the Dynapack was kind of in between. I did notice that my Dynapack read significantly different than a couple of other people I knew with Dynapacks. We put the same car on multiple dynos and get substantially different results. The Dynojets were generally pretty accurate, one Dynojet to the next. And the Mustang dyno was all over the place. You might as well just not even had numbers on that thing. I haven't had an opportunity to put the same car on 2 mainline dynos, but considering how they do everything that they do, I would say that they're going to be pretty much spot on with one another. I think when people ask this question, what they're really asking is how does it compare to a Dynojet? I tune a group of cars for a class where after the race is over, they actually have to put the car on a Dynojet at the track, and if they make over a certain horsepower number, then they are disqualified. So we know what number we have to make on my mainline dyno in order to not get disqualified on the Dynojet, and with that being said, the Dynojet does read higher. Just kind of went into that one already. How does it compare to other dynos? From a number standpoint, from a, I guess, usability standpoint, it does way more than any of the other dynos I've ever used. I didn't have a great experience with the Mustang dyno, so I just kind of leave that alone. The Dynojet literally had a green button and a red button, green for go, red for stop, and that's about all that it did. And my dyno pack did a little bit of stuff. It did have some pretty solid steady state control, the ability to control the rate of acceleration of the runs. So it worked pretty well. I like that dyno a lot. The main reason for switching is that dyno did not do very well with automatic transmissions, and you know, anything over, I forget what the exact number was, but it seemed, you know, once you started getting to the ballpark of 1,000 horsepower, it didn't really want to work very well anymore. So that was the main reason for switching. With that being said, now that I have a mainline, it is substantially better than any of the other dynos I've had. But usually when you change things up, you don't really go backwards. You try and, you know, get the better stuff. So this is no exception. Is it an inertia load bearing dyno? It's load bearing. You literally have control over everything. Some of the dynos, like a Dynojet, for example, like the car controls the dyno, not the other way around. With this, I can hold the car at 4,000 RPM, 100% throttle regardless of horsepower, and I just keep it there. Say a car is at the racetrack and it in high gear, it goes from 1 RPM to the max RPM in 3.5 seconds or whatever it is. We can control the ramp rate of the dyno to mimic that, which is really nice. Why are the runs so long or so short? I guess it depends on what you're used to. There's some situations where maybe some things are a little questionable on the car, so you're trying to speed the ramp rate up just to keep it alive. Some of the lower horsepower cars, especially some of like the road race cars, where they're running 5th gear full throttle for extended periods of time, sometimes I'll make the ramp rates really, really slow and drag the run out. There's also some step tests that you can do. I don't think I've posted any videos of that, so I'll do that as well. Why do you point fans at the dyno? So I did a few videos that appeared that they were like carpet style fans pointing at the dyno. They weren't pointing at the dyno at all. They're actually, like one of them was a Dodge Viper where the exhaust came out right before the rear wheels. And it was on methanol, so I would just use some carpet fans to just try and help push some of that fumes and stuff outside. We've never had any type of heat issues with the dyno. Even running multi-thousand horsepower cars for 8 to 10 hours at a time. You can feel a little heat coming off of the dynos, but nothing that prevent it from working. And there is like internal monitors and warnings and things if you were to get too high. Why does TPS move but RPM doesn't? That's probably in reference to some of the steady state stuff. So yeah, you can set the car up, set the dyno up rather, to maintain whatever RPM you want for however long you want. So say you set the dyno up to hold the car at 3,000 RPM, you just give it enough load to hit that 3,000 RPM point, whether that's 15-20% throttle, and then you can roll into the throttle 30, 40, 50, or even go to 100% throttle, and the car will never accelerate over whatever RPM level you set it at. Again, I'll show some examples of how and why that works so well. It's pretty much life-changing if you've never used a dyno that has that capability. Why are the torque values so high? So this one's always humorous. I dealt with this on my Dynopack Dyno too. So you post a video or something and car makes 1,000 horsepower, but it makes 3,500 foot-pounds of torque, or somewhere around there, whatever it is. And all the internet know-it-alls that clearly don't know anything always make some sort of a comment about how the car's a diesel, or the dyno's broken, or whatever it is. So the dyno is reading axle torque, which is multiplied by your gear ratio. So if you're making 1,000 foot-pounds of torque at the motor and you're multiplying it through 410 gears, you've now multiplied your torque by 4.1. So obviously that number is going to be a lot higher. I do want to say that they've changed the software up to where it no longer spits out that axle torque number, just because I'm sure everyone gets tired of listening to the same people ask stupid questions all the time. How much horsepower can it hold? So mine is technically rated at 3,000 horsepower, but ultimately it can hold, I believe it's 9,000 foot-pounds of axle torque. Again, so that's gonna take 9,000 divided by the gear ratio of the car. That's how much engine torque it can hold. And unlike other dynos where you exceed a certain value and the dyno just shuts down and freaks out, on this one it will essentially it'll act as if the clutch is just slipping a little bit in the car. But generally speaking, you have your peak torque, somewhere in the mid-range, usually a nitrous car, turbo car, supercharged car, like right when the boost hits, its peak, or supercharged nitrous, whatever it is. And then the torque value will actually drop pretty significantly after that. So if you're trying to put a 10,000, 12,000 foot-pound axle torque car on it, yeah, it might just like blow through it entirely. But if you're putting anything, making 3,000 horsepower or whatever, it might slip a little bit, but then it's going to catch back up with itself and operate like normal. We've done right at like 3,000 horsepower on a V10 car with a pretty significant boost spike where the boost ramped up. And looking at the voltages in the dyno, we weren't at the max yet. We were pretty close, but then you go another 500 RPM out past that point, and there's plenty of room to grow. So again, it's going to depend on gearing and stuff, but I want to say Mainline has done 3,800 or 3,900 horsepower on the dyno that I have. The 6,000 horsepower model, like Fuel Tech and T1 and some of the other shops have, I think I've seen over 5,000 horsepower on that one, which, that's just crazy. You're not going to see that too often. How does it compare to other brand dynos? I think that question was already asked. Is the premium software worth it? In my opinion, yes. Standard, it comes with 2 monitors, I believe. There's hundreds of math channels. And there's a bunch of other kind of small things that it can do. Again, that's probably a better question for Todd and Craig. My thought process on it when I bought my dyno was I just want to do it once and be done with it. And one of the appealing factors with the premium software is you get free software updates for life. So I ran into a situation with my Dynojet where I had to pay a ton of money to get updated software. And then my Dynopack, in order to dyno R35 GTRs, I actually needed a software update for that. The customer service people told me it was going to cost an insane amount of money, but luckily the tech support guys, since I just needed one feature that literally was like irrelevant. They just updated the software for me and did not charge me, luckily. So thanks for that, Dynapack. I appreciate it. How much is your payment and who did you finance it through? This one I've actually gotten a lot of personal phone calls on from other shops. I guess they're having issues with their American banks not wanting to finance to an Australian company. And sometimes they won't actually allow the funds to go through until the product makes it into America, and then they'll let it go through. I've heard some different things on that. Unfortunately, I'm not much help on that question. I was fortunate enough to just be able to pay cash outright for my dyno, and I did not finance it. Rather than trying to hold on to my money and not finance it, I did speak with my bank that I use, and they told me that any of the automotive businesses are typically at higher risk for loans because so many of them just fail so frequently. I've been in business for quite a while, so I think I'm kind of exempt from that. But either way, it turned out to be, I could tell it was going to be more hassle than it was worth. They didn't really seem interested in it, especially once they found out it was an international transaction. And I was a little strapped for time when I purchased mine, so I just paid for it outright. So that is all the questions that I saved in my phone. So hopefully that helps answer some of them. If there's any other questions you'd like to know, I try to help out as much as I can. Just leave a comment below and I'll try and get to those, or maybe make another video. If you want to see this thing in action, this car right here set up just to kind of experiment and play and make some videos right now, since the whole world is shut down. Try and make the best of it. And yeah, so if that's something you're interested in, subscribe, and we'll have some stuff coming out soon. Thanks.